So I just got my new Pixel 9 Pro XL in. Let's go ahead and unbox it. I'm gonna give you guys a first impressions review. I'm gonna take it out, take some pictures, take some video against my Pixel 8 Pro. So let's go and get started. If you order from the Google store, you're gonna get it in a box like this, cardboard box. And I'm gonna open it up. See, it's my Google store, in with the new, out with the old. You can recycle this box. Has some recyclable material. You can also order the USB-A to USB-C quick switch adapter. Unfortunately, Google does not provide it anymore with the phone. They're trying to reduce on the number of stuff they include to reduce the box size and whatnot. So you can see it's basically barely anything in there. It's good. So you have the Google Pixel 9 Pro, and this is the XL model. So you're gonna pull these tabs. And then I did get this in the 128 hazel color. Let's go ahead and do this. Kind of minimalistic look. Nothing much else. Here you get the phone itself. Kind of not a fan of how they packaged it this time around. It's hard, there's no pull tab except for here. So yeah, that's all that's in the box. We're gonna move that off to the side. Here's the real thing. Again, power, volume up and down, fingerprint sensor. And this year is an ultrasonic fingerprint sensor. You got your USB-C on the bottom, some ejector on the bottom now this time, and then the speakers on the left. Take this out. Right off the bat, it already looks pretty premium. Look at that shine. I got this in that hazel gray kind of look color. It feels pretty nice in the hand. Feels pretty much just like an iPhone. Honestly, if I was blindfolded and I couldn't tell like which phone was which, if I was just holding it, I might not be able to tell the difference just because the flat edges, the buttons are flattened like so. Hopefully I can capture on the camera. You see it's flattened out like that. And then I'll bring in my Pixel 8 Pro just for comparison's sake. You see the buttons are a little bit bigger, widened out, flattened out because the little bit extra width you get, just because it's flat now versus curved. So, and also notice that the placement's a little bit different this year, right? It's a little bit higher up. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'll have to use it and see if that's any different or not. But yeah, you see that if I line it up, I try to line it up, you can see that the buttons are a little bit bigger, a little bit longer, a little bit flatter. Basically everything's the same. They did reduce the size of the 5G antenna band there. Sorry, your microphone there as well. And on the left side, nothing, just antenna bands. You got less antenna bands this year, but you can already tell the rails are pretty greasy. It's gonna get pretty greasy. I wish everything was just matte, but yeah. And then notice that the Pixel 8 Pro has the SIM ejector or SIM tray on the left. Now it's on the bottom. So you see on the bottom here, a little bit different this year. You got your USB-C in the middle, and then speaker on the left, and then SIM ejector on the right. Versus last year, you had the two speakers, but really it was just one. This is the real speaker, and if you put your finger over it, basically this doesn't really do much. So I'm glad they just went with one at this point, given that the second one doesn't really do a whole lot. And you got the screen itself. Let's go ahead and give this bad baby a power on. And we'll talk about the back real quick here while it's powering on. Last year, you had the upgraded cameras. All three of them were upgraded, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. They also added the temperature sensor from the Pixel 7, which didn't have it. So that was a new addition. And this year, they're still continuing to use that. I basically never used the temperature sensor outside of for reviewing. I never really thought about using it. Maybe I'll try to use it a little bit more for cooking purposes. But other than that, yeah. Looks like they also reduced the size of the LED flash, though I don't know if that's gonna make a huge difference. I rarely use my LED flash. I actually keep it off for the most part. As far as the other camera sensors, I believe the telephoto lens from the Pixel 8 Pro is not the same as the Pixel 9 Pro from what I've read online. There's no official information about it. However, from what I can tell from the rumors and whatnot, it seems like they did upgrade the sensor to a Sony IMX858. S24 Ultra uses a Sony IMX854, so compare that for reference, just because this is a newer one, and I expect this to be pretty good for photos and videos at this point, versus the 8 Pro's telephoto camera wasn't that great in my honest opinion. And I'll test that later in this video. So if you guys want to subscribe, give me a like, help me out to support the channel, because I did pay this with my own wallet. Google did not sponsor this at all, so I can talk trash whatever I want, and I can talk good about other products. So one more thing is that the front sensor did get an upgrade. It has autofocus now, and it's I think it's 48 megapixels now. They're using the same sensor as the 5x telephoto sensor, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments below, but I believe it's the same sensor, so that's great. It's a way better upgrade than the sensor here on the Pixel 8 Pro. I never really use a whole lot for selfies, but you know, as I'm gonna use this phone here, I might not even use it because they have a new feature called Add Me. So I'm gonna set this up and then I'll get back to you guys in just a second. All right, guys, so we're back. I got everything set up, and I wanna talk about my first impressions of the Pixel 9 Pro XL against the Pixel 8 Pro. So let's start with the physical design. I do like the flat edges a lot better. It's just in the rounded corners a lot more. Just this feels, you know, a little bit too boxy in terms of just the corners of the device. And then the curved, you know, corners, it's okay. I do find it's a little not as hard to hold. With the flat edges versus the curved edges, it's a little bit harder to hold just because there's less to hold on to, essentially. And the band is made out of aluminum, which I do wish that Google used stainless steel, especially if you're going to use this naked. I think it's a better choice, the more durable material, all that stuff. Given that this is a premium flagship at this point, with the price and everything, it really should be that way, and I'm going to critique it in such a manner. So the last year, you know, it was okay because the price was still a little bit cheaper, and you got the bigger variant for still $1,000. But this time, the same size, it's increased another $100. So it really is trying to, you know, it really is trying to compete with Apple at this point, and you know, I have to critique it in such a manner. One other minor thing you'll notice is that the G for the Google Pixel logo is a little bit bigger this time around versus last year. So just like little small stuff. You still have the thermometer, like I mentioned earlier, and then the placement of the wide, ultra wide, and telephoto camera sensors all in the same spot as last year as well. So one improvement that I did notice was that the buttons feel a lot nicer compared to last year. Just even though I've been using this for almost a year now, I know it's a little bit worn out compared to like a brand new device, but I think the flat and wider design of the buttons are a little bit better, and then they feel better. They're more clicky. It has a different kind of clicky sound, slightly different, but you know, different enough for me to notice, I would say. Also, the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor, it's much faster. I'll kind of try to show you guys here. So that's about the same there, but you see it kind of took a second for the Pixel 8 Pro. But let me try it again here. So I noticed that, see, so sometimes the Pixel 8 Pro doesn't register my finger fast enough, or sometimes it just doesn't do it. And even though right there with the Pixel 9 Pro, it didn't register it either correctly, even though, you know, it's supposed to be better. But generally, my day-to-day usage, I find that the Pixel 8 Pro does sometimes miss, or takes an extra second to get the mark. It's like something like that, right? I don't place it exactly in the middle in the right placement. I'm just like kind of blindly looking. But if I do it with the Pixel 9 if I do it with the Pixel 9 XL, it just does it. So I would say the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor is the superior option. Generally speaking, I do prefer the iPhone design just from the camera bump perspective, because one of the things I noticed is that you'll see that the change from you know, last year to this year, right? They got rid of this like reflective, really fingerprinty vibe with the polished metal here. I wasn't a fan of this on the 7 or the 8. I think the visor looks cool, but this is sharp, right? And so they, you know, chamfered this out a little bit so it's not as sharp. However, they also made this portion here textured, and it's matte, so you can, so it's not, doesn't get fingerprint as much, which is nice. That means like this front part is probably a little bit more resistant to scratching. The lens obviously isn't, and it's bigger this year. But the thing I wanted to point out is this portion, this kind of like vertical portion, I guess, that where the camera sticks out towards, this portion is still that same kind of finish, that reflective, you know, greasy finish is going to get a bunch of grease and dust and whatnot. And I'm not a fan of that. I just wish that they just matte everything, just coat everything with a, you know, kind of like this satin finish or whatever. But yeah, it is what it is. Now, one of the other things I also wanted to point out was the back coating. It's much grainier, I guess. There's a lot more texture on this year's model versus last year. So they're kind of progressing, right? Because the 7, it was that glossy back. I hated it. It got smudges like crazy. Same thing with the 6. But the 8, they kind of made this matte, which is nice, but it's super smooth. It's super slippery. I don't like it for that reason. And, you know, I just slapped on a case of carbon fiber case on it, and I've been using like that. And then this year, you know, it's a little bit more rough. And so I do like that. But then again, compared to the iPhone, I would say this is like the best implementation of this kind of like matte back. It has this nice rough texture. So it's not really going to slip. Now, you know, of course, these sides, right, allow you to hold the phone really well. So same thing with the Pixel, right? You're able to hold the phone really well. But if I'm putting my finger here like this, right, it's gonna, like, this is pretty slippery still compared to the iPhone though. So one of the other hardware specs I wanted to talk about was the camera array. In particular, if you're thinking about upgrading to one of these devices, last year's or this year's, one thing you do want to consider is that the front camera is upgraded on the 9 Pro XL versus the 8 Pro. It doesn't have autofocus. The sensor is smaller on the newer one, but it has higher megapixels, so you kind of, and a faster aperture, so it's kind of a wash in terms of just this one's a slightly bigger sensor, but then this one has a faster aperture, so you kind of, it's a little bit better, I would say, the faster aperture. Just for most things, if you're taking it at night, you'll kind of lose that ability to kind of capture more light in because of the sensor size, but then it is a faster aperture, so it kind of works out to be even a little bit. It just depends. I'll have to test it for the full review, so you guys want to see that, be sure to subscribe. But for the back lenses, right, everything's pretty much the same from what I can tell. However, the main thing is the telephoto sensor, which I've mentioned before earlier, that I believe this is a newer sensor. And as I've been testing this, just the first impressions of it, I tested it outside at night. So I'll put some video here side by side to give you guys an idea of what to expect. And it seems like the telephoto lens is actually better, and it switches often to the telephoto lens. And I think though, even though the specs say, okay, they're both a 2.8 aperture, etc., the same sensor size, all that, but the newer chip, newer sensor for this telephoto lens seems to allow Google to switch lenses more often in lower light conditions, which tells me that the sensor is switched, it's different, and it's new, and it's better. Now, how much better? Well, you'll see in the video that yes, you can switch to it and it looks better, but when you zoom in to 20x or you take a 30x photo of it like I've shown here now, it doesn't necessarily seem to be that much better in terms of just photo quality. I would say maybe even the 8 Pro might be a little bit better. Now For video though, I did have to force the 8 Pro to switch to the telephoto mode whenever I was trying to switch to the 5X telephoto. It wouldn't switch. It would just use the main wide angle camera and then just zoom in there, and it was terrible looking. For photos, it's okay because it can, you know, do the HDR stitching kind of thing. But for video, it can't really do that. You don't have that ability. So it doesn't seem to do that. It just seems to just zoom in. So I just basically force it by covering the wide angle camera lens, and then it forces it to switch over to the telephoto. But you'll notice that because this one doesn't seem to have as great autofocusing, it's pretty bad in terms of just focusing. So image quality drops quite a bit versus the 9 Pro XL does seem to focus better. However, the image quality for video at that zoom length, it's, you know, kind of just depends on how much light you have. So I would say, you know, for me, I'm definitely digging the 9 Pro XL just because of those features that I just mentioned, the ultrasonic fingerprint sensor, the better cameras, you know, even though it's not that much better, right? It's really just, okay, here's a slight upgrade to the camera, and that's what this is. That's what the 9 Pro XL is. Now, one of the other things that they had mentioned that this gets at 3000 nits peak brightness, and this one, I think it was like 2600 last year. And then the max normal brightness is like 2000 on the 9 Pro XL. I don't remember what the 8 Pro had, but honestly, I didn't really even have problems looking outside with, I didn't have problems looking when I'm outside with the 8 Pro, so I don't expect issues with the 9 Pro, especially, you know, that it's brighter this year. One of the other things is the upgrade for the wired charging. I think it's 45 watt, which is like versus 30 watt or something like that. So it's faster, but again, I don't really care about those features, especially nowadays. It's all pretty fast enough for me, so I'm not really, you know, heartbroken over it's not 100 watts or whatever. One thing I do wish Google did was the ability to put UFS 4.0 storage, which is quite faster compared to 3.1 or 3.0 implemented in last year's model and the years before. So I feel like Google's kind of trying to cheap out a little bit in terms of hardware, right? Just the build quality, some of the hardware specs, the year-to-year performance for the chip. They all seem pretty minimal, but the camera did upgrade. So, and they do have a pretty good trade-in deal right now up until the 26th, so on Monday. And so, yeah, I think that does give you a good option if you're considering this. You have some time to think about it over this weekend. Hopefully this video comes out soon. If you're in the market for a new phone, these are kind of things to consider for me. I think these are important to just think about. Okay, do you like this? Do you like that? Or do you want an ultrasonic fingerprint sensor? It's a little bit more reliable, faster, that kind of thing. A better selfie camera. Now, I haven't tested all this stuff, and you know, you'll have to wait for the full review, but I thought selfies were pretty okay on the 8 Pro already. Now, the biggest thing, again, is the difference between the telephoto camera. It's better. I would say it's probably like 10 to 20% better in my opinion so far, with just the limited time I had to do the testing for night mode or the night setting. And for me, I think that's the best way to use the telephoto, especially for like concerts. That's what I mainly use it for. So I think that's great. So with that all being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this initial review. I'm gonna do an in-depth review hopefully soon, but yeah, otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.